Most people ask themselves, how do I create competitive advantage? That's a question that you ask all the time, every day. And people respond to that by, I hire the best people. We have the best people. Well, your competitors can hire good people too. You cannot do that for a long time, maybe in the beginning, in the initial team. Or they say, we have more features in our product, or we understand better what customers want. We have domain knowledge. Well, the competition can talk to customers too. There is one other thing that you can do, and that is to compete by owning an idea. That's a different concept altogether. And I'm going to speak today about how you can use the word positioning to gain competitive advantage. But before we do that, let me start with something, an observation about what has been happening over the last 10 years or so. I've been hearing about 100 times investors telling companies, stop being product-oriented. Stop talking about your technology. You have to become customer-oriented. Have you heard that? Anybody?
Always.
Always. When you are a customer-oriented company or entrepreneur, life seems to be so simple. All of a sudden, if you need to develop a product, what do? You go and meet with customers. You ask them, what do you want? So you set a meeting with the customer, and the smart customers, as you can see in the meeting, they are looking together with you at the problem. They say, we have these requirements. You put it on the list. Then you go and meet another customer. Add it to the list. And the list goes on and on and on. And eventually you have the customer requirements. You go back home. Now let's go and develop the product. What's the problem with this approach? Well, there is one fundamental problem. And the problem is this. Other than the issue or the fact that most customers don't know what they want, they can confuse you with all these requirements, and they confuse themselves as well. There is one fundamental flaw, and that is that the few customers who know what they want, they are happy to speak with you, but also with your competitors. They are happy to speak with everybody. They are on stage, telling the world where technology is going. So everybody comes back with the same list, and everybody ends up developing the same product. That is a very, very big problem. But I have to tell you one thing. During those 10 years, something happened in the world. And we'll get to that in a minute. And that thing has changed the problem. And the problem is this. Actually, what you know about your customer is less important than what your customer knows about you. Stop to think about that for a minute. If you are that little penguin here, in the crowd of all these penguins, and your customer doesn't know anything about you, other than the fact that you are one of those penguins, then they are not going to buy from you. They are going to buy from somebody else. Maybe they don't know anything about that somebody else as well, but your chances of selling are very, very slim. Companies today find themselves, when they are selling, they find themselves in the following situation. You pick up the phone. Nobody goes to a meeting today. And by the way, you will not get a meeting if you cannot explain why. In the old days, you would say to a customer, let me meet with you and I will explain to you about our great product. You say, what is that great product? That's why we're going to meet. No more. You are not going to get the meeting. But let's say that you got a phone call. That's already something to a big assumption. But if you got a phone call and you are speaking to that customer, you start to present, to explain what is it that you do. What happens from the other side? We all know. The other person, you don't see them, but they are on Google. They are starting to type in some words that they heard that you are saying. What they believe that they understand from what you explained. And when they do that, something happens. It doesn't matter what you are going to talk about. There will be 10 other things, just like you, coming up from the search results. This is just the first page, 10. If you continue, there will be about 20, 25, and they all seem to sound and look just like you. Same words, same terms, same stories. That's a huge problem. But if we talk about 10, why not talk about 1,000 things that look and sound just like you? Where the world is going in terms of distribution of content, software, games, digital, it's going in the direction of app stores, right? Everybody knows what an app store is? So I went on the iPhone App Store. The reason that you see this picture of this woman picking tomatoes is because this is what is really happening when you think about your product as the tomato. I typed in to-do list managers. You know how many there are? There are 1,222 to-do list managers on the app stores. This is number 27. This is number 111. And this guy here is number 22. Actually, 22 is quite good. He is in the leaders, but he is number 22. And number 22 is nowhere. Number 3 is nowhere. In technology markets, and in general, in the market today, if you are number 1 or number 2, you are in business. Number 1 gets 60%. When I started with some other people, Mercury Interactive, we were saying we are going to take 60% of the market, number 1. Number 2 will take 30%. Number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1,222 will share the other 10%, if at all. Okay? That's the problem that you need to understand. Search engines, app stores are changing the way that consumers can make choices. There is no information limit. There is no borders that you can put for customers not to know what others are doing. Okay? So, this problem is so important that one of the greatest marketing gurus of our times, his name is Trout, summarized it in 2 words: differentiate or die. As simple as that. Actually, with startups, there is something nice about it. When you don't differentiate, you indeed die, but you die fast. This is good. Actually, it's good. It's good. You don't raise money because nobody knows what you're doing and why you're different. Then you cannot hire people. Then you die. It happens rather quickly, so you can go on to the next one. Okay? You can become a serial entrepreneur. Many of them are like this. But Trout did something else. 30 years ago, or almost 40 years ago actually, he co-invented the word positioning in a book, Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind, together with his partner. This is the book. This is a 33 years old book. It has the smell of old books. And I keep it, not because it's a classic, as it says, the marketing classic and 500,000 sold, but because it says things that are worth understanding. What is positioning? What can it do for you? In a nutshell, positioning is actually nothing like what you're thinking. It is to find a difference that matters to your customers and present it as an idea. The best ones are ideas that create emotional response with the buyers. So it's an idea. Positioning is about finding an idea. Now, most of the companies that I've seen, 99% of them, think that positioning is something else. Here's what it's not, okay? And you will recognize most of the things that you hear people do. First, it's not buzzwords. It's not, we are the most innovative, integrated, extensive, wide range, leading, enterprise, revolutionary, sustainable solution. But you can create other sentences like this. So it's not buzzwords. Okay, that's clear to most people, even though many fail to do that in practice. It's also not what people sometimes think, feature comparison. Let's compare our features, the features of our service or product with the competition. PC Magazine has been training us to buy laptops this way for 10 years now. Screen size, memory, USB devices, keyboards, whatever. People don't buy that way. In general, that's not a good way because those features tend to be copied by your competition very fast. This is good for 3 months. It's also not something that is one step above, smarter a little bit. It's called feature benefit tables. You write all the things that you do and why they are good for the customer. Well, the competition can explain this as well, right? This is why the customer put them to begin with, because they want it. So they know what it is. Unless you are the first selling something that nobody knows about and you need to educate. That's unusual. So it's not feature benefit tables, it's not value proposition, two nice words that just explain to the customer what is it that you do, but they already asked you to do it, so why bother? And it's not a slogan. So what is it? A positioning idea is an idea that creates a mental explosion. It explodes in the mind of the prospective buyer such that it changes the way that they think about their choices between products in the same category. That's what it does. It somehow gets into the mind of the person with an idea, and it sticks. And once you told them that idea, they cannot forget it. Now you are the owner of that idea. And the idea is designed such that if someone wants to buy a product from that category, then they need to consider that idea. Now, it's not for everybody. There could be people that don't like your idea. But for the group that you want to sell into, that idea is the magic. Now, you have to be able to communicate it in simple language and words that everybody can understand. The beauty of an idea is only as long as it is simple to understand. This is actually much, much more difficult than you may imagine. But there are some great examples that it can be done. This book here, exhibit number 2, Relativity, the Special and the General Theory, Albert Einstein. This is a book about the theory of relativity. Einstein is a mathematician, so he had to be very, very specific. He said, a clear explanation that anyone can understand. Then in page number 1, he had to define. Anyone is any college graduate that learned mathematics. That's it. Many people here should be able to understand it. I read it. In 47 pages, you understand the special theory. 57 pages later, the general theory. Now that's something very heavy. No matter what you are building, developing, or thinking about, I bet you that it's not relativity theory. It's not that complex. But I'm sure that it's quite difficult to explain and to get people to get the idea in a way that it's different enough from anything else that they've seen. Now, when I'm saying simplicity in communicating the idea is critical, some people tell me, we don't use words. We are going to use pictures because a picture is worth 1,000 words. You know, you can make things very complex with pictures as well. This is a road sign from Italy. 1,000 words are not enough to explain this map. This is real. This is a photo from Italy. Sometimes people use very few words, but the problem is that they have double meaning and they contradict themselves. For example, this is from Newcastle in the UK. Touching wires causes instant death, $200 fine. So, yeah, but if you touch it, they do it so you will know that your children are going to pay the fine. But these kind of things, this complexity and inability to communicate clearly an idea that really differentiates you is extremely critical. Okay? Now, has anyone seen the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio? Raise your hand. Quite a few. Let me show you a clip, 40 seconds clip from that movie.
What is the most resilient parasite? A bacteria? A virus? An intestinal worm?
What Mr. Cobb is trying to say.
An idea. Resilient, highly contagious. Once an idea has taken hold of the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks. Right in there somewhere. I will split up my father's empire. Now, this is obviously an idea that Robert himself would choose to reject, which is why we need to plant it deep in his subconscious. The subconscious is motivated by emotion, right? Not reason. We need to find a way to translate this into an emotional concept.
How do you translate a business strategy into an emotion?
And that's what we're here to figure out, right?
So that's what we are here to figure out, right? Now, how do you translate the business strategy into an idea that is an emotional concept that really creates some response for your buyers to prefer you? One of the best places to look at are markets where people have been doing that successfully and understand what positioning is all about. High-tech is not one of these markets, unfortunately. Let's look at the automotive industry for a market where you can find some great examples that give you an understanding of that concept. Back in the year 1955, in the US, everybody liked big cars. It was after World War II, and the economy was doing very well, and people wanted luxury cars, Cadillacs, like this one. But back then, there was another type of car, smaller cars. One of them was this, the Beetle. Anybody has seen the originals? There are some people here that have seen it. Actually, this one actually can go quite well still. The Beetle was a car in the American market dominated by huge boats like this, those big cars, luxury cars, manufactured by Germany, not the most popular country, to say the least. It was ugly. It was short. This one actually is quite beautiful because it's a collector's item. How do you market something like this in such a competitive market where you are so much behind by every possible parameter? Feature-wise, you are going to lose before you start. Then they came up with the idea. Think small. That's the original marketing campaign of Volkswagen from 1955. 2 words. In 2 words, they created a mental explosion in the minds of all the buyers. Think small. Small is good. Small has so many advantages. But what happened is that people indeed looked at that and say, yes, nobody ever told me about a small car. So here's something interesting to consider when you look for a differentiating positioning idea. It has to be available. Nobody is the owner of that idea yet. Now, they were not the only small car in the market. There were many, but nobody owned the idea of a small car. It's an emotional thing. You just have to own it first. Now, when you look at most of the ideas that are good ones, they are taken. Of course, if it's good, somebody else owns it. But in this case, nobody wanted to own it because it seemed to be counterintuitive and counterproductive to go after small cars when everybody wants a big car. For 10 years, sales skyrocketed, and they never changed the positioning. And that's another point. When you finally got a positioning idea, stick to it, stay with it, don't change it. I hear people saying positioning, we do positioning every version, every quarter. You don't have to do it every version or every quarter. You have to do it once and do it right, and then stay with it. A startup or a small business needs just one positioning throughout its lifetime. If you change it every 3 months, you are not doing positioning, you are doing something else. Now, Volvo owns safety. It's in our brain, burned. Volvo is safe. Now I'm seeing Renault trying to show us those crash tests every time and again, convincing us that Renault is safer than Volvo because of the new technology that collapses the engine instead of being rigid like this. It doesn't work. Safety is owned by Volvo. That's a positioning idea. You cannot take it from somebody. Never try to go after somebody else's idea. It doesn't work. The brain doesn't accept it. You have to come up with something else, that you are the first in that thing. BMW is the ultimate driving machine, right? Everybody knows it. That's not a feature. That's not a feature of the car. It's a concept. They compete with that concept in the market for people that give value to the fun in driving. Now you could argue driving is the best word to own. Not necessarily. Safety could be better. Small could be better. So it depends. But you have to find one which differentiates you. It's your idea. It's you. What happens if you don't have it? Life without a positioning idea looks like this. This is real. It's another road sign. Nowhere to go. Everything seems to be in the wrong direction. You cannot raise money because investors don't understand what you're talking about. Product development priorities are all over the place. It's a big mess. You are being pulled by customers' requirements in all directions. Sales may happen, but they are not repeatable and you don't understand why, or you don't understand why they are not happening. And finally, you seem to have competition coming from every possible corner because you don't have a positioning idea that tells you who you are, what you stand for, and what you should do. So everybody competes with you because competition is coming after the features and you seem to be competing with them on those features. So here's what happened to Chevrolet. That road sign that we saw before. What is the idea in your mind that is associated with Chevrolet? So for the last 20 years, they don't have the answer. But I've seen an ad recently. It shows the car driving, obviously, somewhere. And then it comes back to the shop where it is supposed to be sold. And on the floor, it rotates a little bit. Then it stands. And the ad says, "Let the best car win." They don't even say it's them. They are smart because I don't think it's them. I'm not going to buy it because I have nothing in my mind that I can associate with Chevrolet. What is it? The best car is not positioning. You cannot claim to be the best. But they don't claim it. The marketing guys are smart. So I don't buy it. Now, one of the places to look for also for ideas to how to do it right is the film industry. You know, making a film is just like a startup. You talked about failure rates. Failure rates are enormously higher than startups. You invest 100 million and it fails horribly. But when you look at the best films, there are films that have an idea. It starts with an idea. Inception was one, that one that we saw before, about implanting an idea in somebody's mind. That's a new concept, interesting one. I want to hear about it. Is there anybody that hasn't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Anybody that never heard the concept? Everybody heard about it. Anybody that didn't hear that music? Sorry about the volume. I had to wake you up. So everybody knows it. Why? Because it's a masterpiece of positioning idea. The good, the bad, the ugly. One word describes the person, captures everything that you have to know. And they fit that word perfectly. We'll get to that in a minute. It's tightly around that word. Whatever they do, you can see it in that word. But the idea of the movie is to bring these three together. And now let's see what happens. People love it. There were many others, you know, but this is something that was successful. Not because the movie itself, because it starts with the idea. So the movie that really plays right now in most of the startups, if not all of them, and small businesses and big companies, is differentiate or die. As Jack Trout said, it just differentiate or die. That's the movie. Big companies actually are not good source for ideas and how to do it right. I can tell you. This is from my last trip. I was in Connection in Brussels. And there I see a big ad campaign of a company called Solvay. This is taken with my iPhone while I was on the escalator. For Solvay, here is another one. Here is another one that you can read. For Solvay, innovation, it's in bold, as you can see, means developing advanced solutions for an ever more demanding world. And now we have to bow to Solvay because they are the best. What is Solvay? From every corner, from every terminal, it was $1 million of a campaign. So when I came back home, I was curious, but only me. Most people don't care less about Solvay the way that they present it, right? Nothing to write home about. And I look at the website. Here it is, inside the new Solvay, the group's strategy on video. I still don't know what it is. Now it's on video. Let's buy the video. Now we'll understand what the Solvay is all about. The thing is, the interesting thing is, Solvay, actually, the idea that was the reason for this big ad campaign to spend $1 million is a great idea. That's why they did it. Solvay is a chemicals company. And for 40 years, they've been a leader in that market. What Solvay has been trying to tell us by using those buzzwords is that they are the main partner in a very ambitious project to create the world's first solar airplane. An airplane that flies by using the energy of the sun. Now, that's a nice idea, but they said nothing about it. They said innovation means developing great products for an ever more demanding world. If they were to say, right there in the terminals, like Einstein said, in simple words, Solvay has been a leader for 40 years in chemical products, and this is why we came up with the formulas, materials that enable the world's first solar airplane to become a reality, everybody would remember that. Everybody would speak about that when they come back home. But they asked the marketing guys to design the campaign for them. Those guys told them, listen, we are going to put it like this that nobody will understand. Then they go to the website. Still, we will make it impossible to understand, but it will be on video because today, everything is video, right? YouTube. We will put the strategy on video. That's the most fun thing to do. The strategy will be on video. Okay? So that's an absurd, of course, but it's real. From 2 months ago, what is it that you're selling? I ask people this question, this simple question. What are you selling? They say, we sell our product or we sell our service. No, you are selling ideas, not products. And the reason, the sole reason that sales happen is that your ideas spread from you to your customers. And as the idea spreads, sales happen. So how do you spread the idea? That's the big issue. How do you spread the idea? In the old economy, in the old world, the way to spread an idea was with salespeople. You tell them what the idea is, you give them a product and a brochure, and they travel the world to meet with customers, talk about the idea. The problem is we don't have money to hire those people anymore. An idea is digital. It's text, it's bits. Why do I need salespeople to go and communicate my idea? In today's world, the best way to make your idea spread is by using another carrier. And the best carrier there is a product tightly built around your idea. I ask people, what is the reason? What is the job of your product? Say, our product has to solve the customer's problem. I say, no. They will never know about you if you think like that, because your idea will never travel overseas to even find them. The sole and first function of the product is to carry your idea to the customer. So how do you design a product like that, that it can be so tightly wrapped around an idea and carry it to a customer? There is a framework to think about that. You start with the users. You have to really understand who is going to use your product. Exactly. Teachers, lawyers, doctors, enterprise IT people. Exactly that person, that group. The use case, the need, and bring the technology to there. That's a tight product. Here's an example, Dropbox. You know Dropbox? Dropbox is a very, very tight product. For 5 years, it hasn't changed a thing. They captured the word sync. The idea that they own is one word, sync. Put it here, in this folder, it goes to all your machines, all your devices. They are the owners of sync. Prezi is another one. Anybody heard about Prezi? It's a new way to make presentations. Prezi competes against PowerPoint. Who would invest in a company that competes against Microsoft PowerPoint, right? It doesn't look like a very promising venture. But Prezi came up with a positioning idea. In the world of presentations, Prezi is a tool that helps you organize and share your ideas. They are for unstructured content that you want to present. Microsoft is very structured. Now, the fact that I'm presenting with Microsoft PowerPoint here, ideas, doesn't matter. Of course Microsoft can present ideas, of course. But in terms of positioning, they haven't captured that idea. So it's available for somebody to grab. That's what Prezi has been doing. Now 40 million users, that's the power of an idea, even against the most dangerous competitor ever. In my last company, I did that also, came up with a differentiating idea called black box flight recorders for software applications. Just like you have a black box on an airplane that records the flight, when there is a failure or a crash, you can look at the recording, replay, and see what caused the failure. So we came up with the idea of a black box for software applications. It would reside on the servers of Citibank on the website, or Amazon.com for that matter. When there is a problem with transactions, you can play back and see what happened. There were many other companies doing that in terms of technology, but nobody had that idea. And once we captured that word, recording, it was so different from all the monitoring that people were doing. They were telling that there are problems. We recorded the problems. That was the differentiation. Nature is the master in creating tight products. What is that product? Yeah, it's called Northern Lights. There are other products. Nature likes to create them very tight. Niagara Falls, Grand Canyon, volcanoes. Each product does one thing and does it very well. And it's very easy to explain to somebody else what it does, right? So you can share it with some other people. You can explain it. It flows between people. It doesn't need the internet. It never needed the internet before. People knew about it. Humanity created one tight product around that idea of Einstein. You know what that idea was? That every single gram of mass can release zillions and zillions of energy. Because energy equals mass times the light of speed squared. That's one of the fundamental ideas. What was the tightest product that humanity created around it? Atomic bomb, right away. Nobody thought about lighting up Africa or whatever, no. They went for the real thing, the tightest product. It doesn't have any feature. That's the only feature to prove the formula, to prove that it's right. Okay? I want to give you, just to summarize this concept, what happens when you compete with features? You know this book, The Snitches? Here it is. The Snitches, Dr. Seuss. If you want to see what happens when you compete on features, this is what happens. You remember the story? The snitches were, actually there were two types. The star belly snitches and the snitches without the star. The ones with the star had that feature, the star, that differentiated them. So they were on the beach walking like the star belly snitches. All the others were looking at them quite sad. And they did parties, private parties, only for the star belly snitches. And they ate hot dogs, Frankfurters. And the other guys would not be invited. But one day, this guy, Sylvester McMonkey McBean, showed up with a special machine. And he told all the snitches without the star on their bellies that he has a solution. For $3, you get into the machine, from the other side you jump with a star on your belly. So that was a very important feature to have for them. So everybody paid $3 and they jump and they get out with the stars on their belly. Problem was that after a while there were so many of them with stars on their bellies that it wasn't a feature that differentiated anymore. So then he said, guys, if somebody wants to erase the star from their belly, you go from the other side. But you have to give me the $3. So they ran from the other side, and like that, it ran and ran and ran. In the end of the story, he is riding along with all their money, and of course, some of them have the stars, some don't. So everybody loses in those feature wars. I want to show you, for the end, something funny. This one is actually taken from my last trip to Lisbon in Portugal. This is from the street. And you will see this guy here, he is a small business. He's a small business guy, and he is raising funds. You see the funds here? He's raising money. And he has a feature. Let's see if you can detect right away what his feature is. He has a very nice feature. What's the feature? The dog. That's the feature. Now, he was very successful. It was Friday, and he was very successful. I've seen him, and I thought about that feature, and I was wondering how long would it take for competition to show up? Because my experience has been always, it doesn't matter how small, how stupid, how ugly, how unprofitable a business is, competition will come the moment that they see some money. So it took only one day. Here's the competition. I can tell you that the competition is still not trained. The team is still not really in motion, but they are learning. You can see they are learning quite well, and they are already in business. You can see there are some coins there. It's still not perfect, but they are competing. They are already in business.
They're in alpha mode.
So they are in alpha mode, but it takes only 1 week. They will copy the feature, and they will be in beta, and then they are in full steam. So competing with features is not a good idea. But I want to show you another example from that same street, only 300 meters down the street. There was this girl. And I heard her singing from 300 meters before I was standing in front of her with my iPhone. Bear in mind that this is coming from an iPhone. And this is the real thing. It's not a feature. Nobody can compete. So you think about this. She has that voice, right? That voice that seems like something that is from another world. She has no features. It's just her. She does what she can do better than anybody else. So to summarize, it's actually a very simple summary. The film is differentiate or die. If you want to differentiate, because otherwise you will die, you do that with a positioning idea that captures the thing that is the fundamental difference that is important to your customers. Present it as an idea that creates an emotional response. Wrap it with a tight product that can carry it to your customers. And if you do all that, you stand a chance to be a sea lion among penguins. Thank you.